Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the showcase there. I am here with Sophie and Amber from Pentabus and Tim Foley, a writer as well. Do you guys want to talk about what everyone has just seen about Planetfall?
So for anybody who doesn't know us, we're Pentabus. We are a rural touring theatre company and we tour nationally. We're based in Shropshire, so our local schemes would be Live and Local and Arts Alive, but we do tour all over the country. So hello to all of the fantastic people that we have toured to. Pentabus has been around quite a long time. We've been around as a team for the last 4 years. And this, what you've just heard is the very beginnings of an embryonic attempt for us to create a new piece of theatre which is COVID safe. That was the impetus behind it, and we're very much still in development. In that sense, we have we've spent time trying to work out the tech of it and the potential of how we can engage with the audience before we've delved completely into the story and the narrative and begun to work with actors. So we're doing it sort of the other way around in order to try and make some work that we can share with audiences as soon as is humanly possible. Because as we all know, it's been really difficult from talking to our local schemes and to our local halls. We haven't been able to get into our halls. So we've been trying to rethink a whole new form of how to make touring theatre, which is theatre that is essentially work that is outdoor work, but outdoor work that can go indoors as and well when it is able to go indoors. So that's been quite a big thought process for us over the last few months.
Tim, did you want to add anything to that, or would like to start with telling us how the partnership between yourself, Tim, and Pentabus came about?
Yes, well, I've been sort of hanging on with Pentabus for quite a while now. I was their writer-in-residence in 2016, and then they couldn't get rid of me because I refused to let them. So I'm now their associate artist. And we started last year working on a play that was going to be about power stations. And this was going to be a very sort of traditional village hall. And this is what we would have been touring this autumn. Obviously, we couldn't make that work. But the conversations that we had sort of interviewing locals about the shutting of power stations, a lot of them were talking about these are places that this is what the future used to look like for them. This is what they imagined the future were going to look like, sort of concrete buildings, big towers. And I'm a big sci-fi geek, and there's a lot of sort of sci-fi from the sort of the 60s and the 70s that use power stations as like alien temples or weird places on planets. So that was all sort of digging around in the back of our mind when we were trying to then make a new piece that sort of imagines the future and imagines the future in a kind of hopeful way. Yeah.
And I suppose I'll just jump in there a little bit if that's all right, Holly. It was a kind of it's been a necessary journey in that we've all been on a necessary and not very enjoyable journey over the last few months, and we'd been working with Tim on Light Years, which was due for touring this autumn. It had been postponed to the spring, and Tim and I had a conversation a few months ago and sort of said, right, okay, well, let's use our thinking brains. We were at second draft stage of Light Years. Let's see how we can use some of the thoughts and ideas that have come from Light Years and create something that we could potentially bring to audiences as soon as possible. And Tim felt like the right artist to create that. Tim has made some really fantastic podcasts in the last couple of years, and they are in that form that you heard at the very beginning of the sharing, in terms of being interactive podcasts. So the audience don't have to do anything, but at the same time you can listen to something and you can imagine taking in a huge breath of air, or jumping to the left to avoid something, or turning around and lifting your hand and picking something up, or imagine walking. So the interactive nature of his podcast was something that I was very interested in, because it's something that an audience can engage with either outside or inside. It's potentially something that could end up as an app on your phone. Yeah. So it felt like a form that was exciting to explore. And as we started to explore that, we thought, okay, this is brilliant, there's something in this, but at the same time, what we're all missing is live performance. So what if you started off putting a set of headphones on and listening to a story in which you're the protagonist, a story in which you are heading somewhere, and gradually at some point during this process you start to hear two other voices, and those two other voices could be on the podcast, but in fact they're two actors that are stood in around somewhere near you. And it develops into what would be a slightly more traditional two-hander piece of live theatre that springs out of the audience that are not expecting it. So that felt like an exciting way of connecting actors to audiences, and also an exciting way of looking at the notion of a piece beginning with an element of that podcast sense. And Tim felt like the right person to do it, not only because he was already writing something, but that notion of thinking about the future feels really important to us at the moment. Yeah. And there's always been a nostalgia for the past, but the nostalgia of the huge and epic things that happened, like the moon landings, like 3-day power weeks in the early 70s. Those are things that our audience have talked to us about before in the past, in terms of them looking back and thinking back and their nostalgia. So it felt like, can we connect that with a thinking about how do we create a better future? How and where could our villages be in the future? And how can we look after each other a little bit more?
Yeah, amazing. And it does look like a really original concept. And the mixed media element, is that something that's quite new to Pentabus, or have you dabbled in the mixed media tech before?
We presented a show, I think it was before my time. It was a piece called In This Place, and it was a walking experience across the Shropshire Hills, whereby the audience put headphones on and went for a walk, and during that walk they saw things that had changed the shape of of the walk that they were taking. So there were little bits of set pieces and elements of props built into the landscape, and that worked really well. We've also got a piece that toured agricultural shows for the past 3 years called From Land to Mouth, which is again multimedia, in that you walk into a tent and you sit down and you're given a newspaper and a glass of lemonade, and you put a set of headphones on and you're sat in a farmhouse kitchen listening to a verbatim play which was created with farmers. It was commissioned just during the Brexit vote, so it's very much the concept of farmers with differing views and opinions considering the future, connected into different themes. So we have done it. It's not something that we've done recently, and it's not something that we have directly connected with village halls before. So this feels like the opportune time for us to do that, and to try and create something which is able to connect with our halls and our schemes, but also to create some work that feels safe for an audience.
Yes, and on that, how are you going to ensure that the work is COVID safe? I guess this it must be a new way. It is a new way of working now, and bringing that COVID safety element and thinking into the very early development stages, which is something new for anyone making work since February. So how are you going to ensure the safety of the event?
I jump in there. So these are lots of new things for us to think about and consider, and having the time to process and work out what those are. And some of those things that we sort of started exploring and discussing when we did a bit of an R&D a few weeks ago, which I think Sophie will touch on a bit in a minute. But audience capacity, reducing those numbers right down, and as painful as that is to a certain extent, it's really important to be able to manage and control the audience. In terms of being outside, that's a major factor in terms of why we're creating a piece that can work outside or inside. And also in terms of how we manage the audience in a socially distanced manner. We will use headphones, but those will be they'll be sanitized, they'll be quarantined, so there'll be a period of time before anyone else uses them. but really kind of reducing the amount of physical kind of items that we're expecting our audience to their engagement with it. From ticketing, you know, we anticipate that we'll have to work much more with the promoters on that, and yourselves, Holly.
Yeah.
And just in terms of building in extra cleaning and cleansing time, I mean, we always tour with all of our own kit, so that's for us is less of a obviously with the COVID safety of our company is absolutely paramount. So in terms of our accommodation that we book, managing, making sure that they're in, we book our accommodation rather than relying on digs through tours, but ensuring they're self-catering, ensuite, that's what I'm trying to say, accommodation. So it's kind of across the board, from audience through to our company to the promoters, and ensuring the safety of everybody involved. So I think I've probably covered pretty much everything there, but.
Thank you. And can you clarify a little bit more just about the interactive elements and how that might work? You touched on it slightly, but just to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the interactive element of the show is essentially the fact that the audience are wearing headphones. What that does is it enables people who have stood quite far away or sat quite far away from each other to still be able to hear and engage with what's going on. We also do use the difference engine captioning equipment, which will be connected to what people are hearing, in case there are people who have hearing impairment or who are big or little d deaf community members. But you will be, as an audience member, wearing headphones, and what that means is that you can hear everything that's going on. That's often a difficult thing with outdoor work, particularly with outdoor work which is intended to be intimate, because there are elements of this story which are very much intimate and small moments. At the same time, we will be able to use the outside of the hall or a specific space in the village to become part of the set. So I would imagine that we would find a tree somewhere, and that tree may have an element of the set built into it. There's a key moment in the story where we discover that that Johnny has fallen out of a tree and is therefore stuck in his room, imagining in a slightly different way to his sister Jane. So we are hoping to build elements into the surroundings. Other than that, it's not massively interactive in that it is, and it's a live theatre experience. The audience can engage with the podcast in an interactive way if they would like, but it's not essential. From talking to some of our audience members, some people like to sit down and watch a show, and that's okay. Some people would be very happy to put some headphones on and go for an adventure, and that's potentially possible as well. But this feels like it's a way for the show to be both static and live and engaged. So it's not crazy interactive at all. It's very much a story told to you in a slightly different form.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds amazing. And also anyone would be happy to feel like they could get involved in this as well. So it's not too, if someone feels like they don't want to interact too much, then they don't have to. And people who really want to get full on into it, they can as well. That sounds brilliant. We've got a question from someone watching. And that is, are you making sure that with reduced audience sizes, you are still able to make it viable?
Yeah, shall I jump in there? So,
yeah.
So we've planned this as a 30-minute or so performance piece, so that we're able to schedule 2 to 3 performances in an evening or in a day, depending on when that is taking place. Which means that then we've got our reduced audience capacity, and the fees the fees that we would charge for that are according to number of shows. So we would strongly try to get it in a position where we have 2 shows in an evening taking place, which would allow for increasing that audience capacity, and the fees are representative of that.
Thanks. So another question coming in: do you feel confident that this work would work in a library setting?
Yeah, I think we can make it adapt to any setting. Essentially, the primary element of the show is that it is outside until a time as which we are able to be inside. We've made work in libraries in the past, and we love making work in libraries. So it could absolutely be something that can work in a library setting. I think the key thing would be that there is an outside space which is the right size. For us to be able to present the show, and that may be something, that may be a way of it may be capacity dependent depending on how much space we have and how far apart we can get people from each other.
Thank you. Somebody has suggested that you make friends with silent disco, local silent disco pals. Not a bad idea for some headsets. And someone has said the steps Amber has just detailed are what most tools will be doing and insisting on. The big barrier will be persuading audiences that it's worth risking. What will you do specifically to help us with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I will direct. We've got an event, a live event, live theatre that we're doing next week. And so for that, we've put together quite detailed information for our audiences that was available from the time that the tickets went on sale for that, which clearly outline kind of what the arrival process is, kind of social distancing, whether our team are going to be masked up, what the expectation is of the audience. So covers all of the kind of safety, COVID, keeping our audience safe requirements, as well as any other information that is useful for them in the decision-making process of purchasing a ticket and attending, but also making it really clear that that you can change your mind because you may feel that on the particular day that the safety is not right for you, or you want to question or feed into how we can make it better and make it a safer event. So it's about a conversation as much as providing that information and making it really clear and available.
Yeah, amazing. And you've sort of answered another question about encouraging audiences in as well. And I guess if anyone has any more questions, then they can contact you directly on that. Do you want to add anything else before we wrap up?
I think just looking at David's comment there, how we'll help encourage audiences. It's a huge thing for our sector at the moment. How do we encourage audiences to feel safe to come back, particularly to their own community spaces? Our village halls are being used for other things at the moment, and that's fantastic. But I think that needs to be done delicately. I think doing trial outdoor events from our point of view will help, because it means that we can share our learning with our audiences. But also for this project, what we're hoping to do is trial it with 2 performers and put a call out to see if any of our local promoters or audiences would like to come and trial it, obviously as and when it is safe. So we feel like we really need to have a conversation with our audiences, because that's the way to encourage them. I know that there have been some really fantastic studies done in which many audiences have said that the place they will feel safest returning to, first of all, will be their local village hall or community centre. But we need to put that into action, really. And it feels like the first of us that are out there making work will be the ones that are beginning to create an engagement in the audience. So for us, it may be about having slightly longer runs so that you've got a couple of performances to trial it with, to work out how comfortable audiences feel, work out how to make them feel more comfortable. Yeah. I mean, I think with rural touring, we put the audiences at the heart of everything anyway, but we need to step this up.
Yeah, quite. And I'm just going to remind everyone as well that the tour packs are available to download in this session. If you scroll down the page, you will see them just there. That will have lots more information in for anyone who wants to consider booking and talking to you about booking this production. And it sounds brilliant, and I think everyone should think about that. Thank you very much for that and for sharing your showcase and Q&A with us. Just to let everyone know that we are back with Pentabus again at 1:30 today, who are going to be doing a practical session on working with on how to rural tour, basically, and how to make the best of rural touring, particularly at this time. There's also some other options at 1:30. So there is last week's workshop. If you're not coming into the Pentabus one, you can watch last week's workshop, and also you can watch Symphony of the Countryside, which is a collaboration between many rural touring schemes led by Carter Cove, and it's a really beautiful film as well. So lots to choose from. Go and have a lovely lunch, everyone. Make sure you network, get those photographs up, and start chatting with someone new. I'm going to keep banging on about it. Thank you again to Tim, Sophie, and Amber, and we will see you at 1:30. Thank you.